Mountain, Island, Lightning Bolt, Spell Pierce, Switchblade, Stab Wound, Red Mage, Blue Mage.
Well, okay, we'll start again.
Okay.
Welcome to Anime Talk. Kenny has never listened to Cowboy Bebop. Don't let his beautiful rendition of it make it seem like he knows anything about anime. Pow, pow. I don't even know how it goes. Anyway, he's ever seen Cowboy Bebop?
I have not.
Kenny doesn't watch anime.
He's not
a nerd.
I've watched very little anime. It's not that I've watched no anime.
Oh, okay.
That's
Name your anime.
Oh my god. So this is like I've watched Dragon Ball Z. I've watched One Punch.
Man.
I've watched Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Oh, then you don't have to watch anymore. You're good.
I've peaked, huh?
No, we still have to watch Madoka. You and I.
Yes, that's right.
But we're not here to talk about anime. We're actually here to talk about
Magic the Gathering.
I was wondering how long you were gonna let me go silent for. I was literally waiting to see how long it would take for you to like say something.
Well, I think the answer is something like 5 seconds or something.
Yeah. Okay. So yes.
Magic the
Red
Gathering.
Mage, Blue Mage.
That's right. Red Mage, Blue Mage time. We're recording,
it's me.
but not on stream.
Yeah, and I wanted to say it's me, Amber, the Red Mage, but you cut me off, so whatever. Doesn't matter anymore. No one cares about who I am.
I'm Kenny, the Blue Mage. It's off to a riotous start.
Well, we're not streaming, like you said, while you were talking over me.
Oh my god.
And also, it's just because I personally have been, like, as far as, like, brain energy goes,
right.
As you could probably hear in my voice as I'm talking.
Right.
So we're not streaming because I don't want to be on camera. I don't want anybody to see me. I don't have energy to be in front of an audience, but I'll allow it. I'll do this recording.
And then I'll pretty it up.
Right now I'm got half of a blanket draped across me. My hair is disgusting. I'm wearing pajamas, whatever.
You look like you're like a Roman senator or something.
Yes. Off with their heads. Wait, that has nothing to do with the Roman senators. Whatever. Anyway, I wish you could fix my brain for me.
What a great segue. Is that what you were going for?
Yeah, finally. Oh. What? This is episode 612, and you're finally getting what I call,
the bad segue.
That was a really good segue. We're just talking about how my brain was bad and how much I am tired. And, can you fix my brain? Can you talk to me about how to fix my brain?
Well, we're going to be talking about something else. We're going to be talking about how to fix magic. And I don't know which one would be harder, fixing your brain or fixing magic.
Probably magic.
Okay, so this is our segment. We got to introduce it. So cue the music, Johnny.
What's that coming on down the bend? Looks like some magic articles and or videos. Guess it's time for another show and tell.
So, yes, the topic here is how to fix magic. So I am showing and telling you about an article. This is from Flipside Gaming by an author named Ryan Normandin. Don't know where the emphasis goes. And I guess before we start getting into it, really, I was just going to ask you straight up, do you think magic is broken? Do you think magic needs to be fixed?
I would say, because I don't have a very mechanics focused mind, it's basically just, ooh, goblins, ooh, art, ooh, this. And I don't play competitively, and I don't play in current standard format.
Right.
We've talked about many times, my format that I like is Commander. And I getting into Pauper, and then also Historic as well.
Sure.
But I hear from other people, and especially with the recent debacles in Standard with what's his face Oko, and all of the companions and Teferis. It seems like people are really upset and concerned about the mechanic designs of cards. That it is becoming a very Standard is becoming a very broken format. It's not balanced very well.
Right.
You get these 1 to 2 or 3 very powerful cards that end up being banned within like the month that they're released.
Right, and that it's been a semi-consistent thing for the past 3 years.
Yeah, 3 years.
Yeah,
at least.
So yes, that is the problem. And that is what Ryan is trying to propose to solve.
Because this article came out, I'm looking, May 29th, 2020. So It's not been that long for us that this article came out.
No, this is pretty recent. And this was before the most recent bans and the companion rules changes. So that's just more evidence. I think that's right. Let me scroll down a little bit. Yes,
oh man, there's
this
just
is
a
before
lot
the
of
most
cards
recent
in
bans.
this.
Yes, so I wanted to open. You have not read this article, so I kind of want to just walk through it in stages. He opens with a very good disclaimer. The disclaimer is, I love Magic. I have a lot of respect for Wizards R&D and understand that building formats is tougher than I can imagine. This article certainly contains criticism, but I hope it's constructive criticism.
I like that disclaimer a lot. 1, because it's saying I'm not coming at this with malice, and 2, that I don't do this as a job, so I can't even imagine what it's like to build a format or inside formats
that is interesting, fun, and balanced.
And that I'm basically have criticism, but I'm hoping that it's something that Wizards or other R&D people could, or people who design games in general, like, this is one of the things I like about these kinds of articles. It's even though you're like doing constructive criticism on one game, it's just good information to have if you are designing stuff too.
Right. So then we get into the article proper. And it opens with kind of a story, rewinding the clock a little bit. So when I first started playing Magic, it was right after Mirrodin, and which is famously a really broken time because you have Skullclamp and you have Affinity for Artifacts, which is running around doing horrible things to Standard. Skullclamp got banned in 2004, and when they banned it, they released some context for the card being banned. So this is what Wizards wrote at the time. In hindsight, it should have been obvious. Part of the problem was that our views of the card, of Skullclamp, were tainted by its earlier incarnations, which were very bad. The other part of the problem was that even without old bias, the card's power is not that easy to parse at first glance. By no means am I saying that Skullclamp's hidden power is an excuse for us missing it. We're paid professionals. We're supposed to find and fix stuff like this. But we were entrenched in our own internal metagame, and this card slipped through the cracks. Skullclamp was a non-entity to us.
Well, and we've talked about this. Like, even though you're a paid professional, you're still a human being. Just because you get paid all of a sudden doesn't mean that you're perfect. Like, that's the thing that kills me too is, I mean, I get it. Like, it's your job and you should do your job well. But this is definitely one of those areas where, like, I definitely feel empathy for designers because, like they said, they got caught up in their own internal metagame. I've got caught up in my own internal whatever, and then you miss the bigger picture because you're too busy working with this one perspective.
Right.
Anyway,
there's an example I like, and I don't know if I've talked about this example before on this show, but Starcraft is like a game that has existed for a long, long time. And it had a like competitive professional scene for a long, long time. Like, I don't know how long it's been, like over a decade it's been played. And the meta, without any big updates, so the meta is kind of solved for the game. And there's this, I don't know any of the specific names because StarCraft is not my game, but there's this big tournament, and the matchup were these two factions going against each other, and that metagame was supposed to be solved. One's supposed to have a big advantage over the other. But one of the people playing brought in a completely new strategy that had not been formed in the first, 10 years of the game existing, and flipped it and beat the other faction that was supposed to have the advantage. And so I think that's an example of this, like, you get stuck in your own metagame, you're blinded by what everybody's doing, and you miss kind of this other thing, even if it should be obvious, you know?
Right.
So anyway, pushing forward. So that was when I first started playing the game. I started playing right after Mirrodin. Played a little bit. I started playing my senior year of high school, played a tiny bit in college, but kind of fell off then. Just didn't have anybody to play with, really. And when I finally came back to the game, I came back in M10 right before Zendikar. So this is years have passed at this point. And the next standard bans are with Worldwake. Jace the Mind Sculptor and Stoneforge Mystic get banned. And let's see.
Before we go forward,
yeah.
We skipped over what Skull Clamp does or why it's broken.
Yeah, so Skull Clamp is 1 mana. A quick creature gets +1/-1. When a equipped creature is put into a graveyard, draw 2 cards. It's 1 to equip. So are you asking why is that good?
So you can just keep equipping it to something that has a 1.
So if you have a Goblin army, for example, you can equip it.
Jesus
so for 1
Christ.
mana, so for 1 mana you get to draw 2 cards over and over again. It's pretty good. And then you can play more stuff, and you can equip the Skull Clamp to the other stuff.
Yeah.
I remember.
So if I had like 15 mana up, which I wouldn't by that time if it wasn't a commander game, but like,
right.
Yeah, it's like
it does have hidden
dang.
power, because I remember again when I first started playing, this was part of an intro pack, and I remember opening it and looking at it and being like, this is stupid. It gives +1/-1, and if it dies, I get to draw 2 cards. My opponent's never going to kill this creature because they don't want me to draw the cards. Not thinking about what you
could
really
just burn your own self. I like how I got it instantly. I was like, oh, well, you know what? Just all those goblins I already have for sacrifice.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why that's disgustingly broken.
Gotcha.
And it does have a very famous story of it was in the files and was bad for a long time. Like, it was kind of a junk card, like unplayable. Yeah. And so they made a few tweaks right before they sent it to printing without testing it. And this is kind of a common thing. A similar thing happened with Jace. They changed his Fate Seal ability, the one that lets you look at the top card and keep it there or put it on bottom. They changed that at the very last minute and didn't test it, and it really shuts down games. But anyway. So.
Okay, sorry.
That's fine. Perfectly fine. So continuing on with the story, Aaron Forsyth wrote about Jace and Stoneforge. I would have preferred to go through my entire career as director of Magic R&D without ever having to ban a card in Standard. Sadly, that was not to be. And then the article, this is Ryan writing here. The article points out that banning cards is something they hate to do because it is, quote, an admission of grievous mistakes on our part. It hurts consumer confidence in our product. Okay, cool.
I mean, it's like getting a recall notice.
Yes.
It sucks.
Yes, it does. And then, again, there's a long period of nothing getting banned. And then in 2017, we start to get bans. So in the article here, I'm down January 2017 with Emrakul, Smuggler's Copter, and Reflector Mage.
Okay.
So these are all the bans. So January, those 3 cards got banned. April, Felidar Guardian gets banned. June 2017, Aetherworks Marvel gets banned. January 2018, Attune with Aether, Rogue Refiner, Rampaging Frosson, and Reminop Ruins get banned. October 2019, Field of the Dead. November 2019, Oko, Thief of Crowns, Once Upon a Time, Veil of Summer. And then we had modern bans, Hogak, Arisen Necropolis, and Arkham's Astrolabe is actually still legal, but is a huge, huge problem for the format. And then you can add on top of that, June 2020, now we've banned Fires of Invention. What was the other one that got banned alongside?
Was it? I don't know. Was it Agent of Treachery?
My brain's melting. Yes, that's the one. Agent of Treachery, and then rules changes to companions.
I knew something. I knew something that Kenny didn't know.
Congratulations.
That's my little goblin playing this little horn that I keep in my pocket.
That's very cute. You can have a Skull Clamp on hand in case you need to draw some cards.
Yep. Get more goblins that play horns. Oh my god. Kill 1 goblin, get 2 goblins. I would always have 2 goblins.
Yeah.
No, I could have lots of No. Okay, I can't do math right now. Let's keep talking.
Let's continue. So his conclusion at the end of this section is to say, in the span of 2 years, Wizards banned more cards in Standard than had been banned in the previous 20 years. And he says, if banning cards is, quote, an admission of grievous mistakes on our part, then what is banning 13 cards spread across 8 sets in 3 years? And that's just standard.
Can I comment on that?
Yeah, of course.
Do you think in the last 3 years they've been trying to do more interesting things? And that prior to the last 3 years, they've been playing it pretty safe?
No, I wouldn't say that. Like, if I look back at, like, a list of sets, like Dominaria, you've got Amonkhet, you know, War of the Spark, I thought was pretty cool. I don't get the sense that that big gap of time in between the last bans, the Jace bans, and this new, like, open floodgates. I don't think of that period as like, oh, that was a stagnant period where they weren't trying anything. I think there's like the game was growing and being played more than ever.
So then my next question becomes, and this is because, you know, working in my own field of R&D, what has changed internally?
My guess is this, if I can hazard a guess.
Go ahead.
I think it takes a lot of work and a lot of resources to thoroughly and sufficiently test cards. Like, you need more people, you need more time to do it. And I think probably what happens is the people who are upstairs are basically like looking at it and being like, you all haven't had a ban in, 4 years. We're going to start peeling back resources from this because obviously you've got it handled.
Yeah.
And then it gets relaxed and then you get problems again.
Well, that's the other thing. It's like, so it could be several things in my opinion, because usually if you see things like this is a symptom of something that is actually the problem, right? It's always, this is the symptom of the problem, right? The symptom is we're getting 13 bans in over 3 years, 8 different sets. And previously 20 years has been nothing. Right. And it's like, okay, so then what's going on? What is your internal structure like? Do you have scope creep? Why are there last minute changes? Also, I think the timeline for set releases is really freaking aggressive. Right, like, exactly. I think about my R&D team, and we're doing, juvenile products, where it's like, you can't rush things. You can't do that. Like, it's one of those, like, you can do a very lean, strategic development cycle, but it has to be, everybody is aligned. You have to have the upper management and everybody is on board. There's no scope creep. There's a timeline that's followed very, very well, rigorous testing, and you do have those resources at hand. So to me, it's like, okay, what is missing? What is missing from this piece? Is it resources? Is it the not focus on testing? Do you have, not everybody's aligned, they're confused, right? What is going on? Because like, this is obviously something internally is something is happening. And so I would be interested has there been, I'm just speculating here. I have no idea. Has Wizards always been, Magic always been with Hasbro? Or is that a more recent thing?
It's more recent. I forget when they were acquired.
When did Hasbro acquire MTG?
Now we're doing research.
September 1999.
So it's been there for a long time.
Okay. So it's been there for a while. So that transition wasn't the problem. So then it's like, well, then what happened?
Well, you don't know what's going on internally. Like, some higher ranking position gets changed out that we don't hear about, of course.
Or you even have just people who are on the same, whatever level, if you want to, same things that don't really agree, whatever. But that's just all speculative. Sure. But it's speculative and it causes speculation because you have 13 bans in 8 sets in the past 3 years.
It could also, I think I've heard people talk about Wizards just taking more of, like, just changing their stance on bans. Like, they're just not afraid of them anymore. This will be now episodes and episodes back where Josh and I talked about the companion rules changes and the recent bans. And one thing I was pointing out is just like how their tone has changed. Like, You heard those little snippets from Aaron Forsyth about the Jace bans, where he's like, these are grievous mistakes on our part, and I never want to see this happen in Standard again. Now when cards get banned, they're just like, these cards have been banned because they're too good. So I think they've changed their philosophy internally, where it's like, banning is not necessarily the horrible thing we thought it was. Players aren't leaving the game when we ban cards.
Right. So I guess that it's like the question, if they change their stance on it, what made them change their stance on it? Because if it's obviously not costing them a ton of money. Because like I know for my own experience, if we have a mistake that goes out, that it's like it takes a lot of corrective action and cost to deal with that kind of stuff. So they're obviously not having a cost association to it.
The cost they're paying is like losing players.
Well, that's the thing, is like then the cost is perception. And so if you have players who think that the perception of like how good you're doing, and then they just give up like playing the game, like I know, well, that's my thing too, is like Josh even kept playing Arena even though he hated seeing companions, you know. It's like he's still playing even though.
Yeah, I think I hope that they're not looking at like the numbers and being like, we've banned this many cards, we banned 13 cards, now I guess they've banned 15 cards over the last few years. And, you know, we're not seeing that much of a dip in the player base. It's like, but there's a cumulative effect there. If every set has banned cards, people will eventually get tired of it.
Right.
Like, getting tired of starting a new format, it being completely broken. You have to play against these broken cards, or you have to play with them, and then they're going to be taken out from under you. Anyway, this is not the focus of this article. This is just like setting the stage. The rest of the article focuses on steps that Ryan recommends to avoid this in the future. So let's start going through those. So number one, he says, don't cheat on mana. And he just talks about basically how like the mana system is what makes Magic great. It is like the innovative thing that it did as a trading card game, the first trading card game, where it's like you pay for what you get, basically. Right. It's not like playing other card games where you can just play your cards. Cards have different effects, and you basically restrict how powerful a card is by making it cost more. And you can expect certain effects for 1 mana, and you can expect certain effects for 2 mana, and it scales up from there. And he says the problem is that we have all these cards that are just ignoring or getting rid of this fundamental thing about the game.
Right.
So like you've
cheat things into being played,
Yes. So you've got things like Fires of Invention, which just got banned, or Wilderness Reclamation that doubles your mana. You've got things like Aetherworks Marvel and Energy in general, all these things that don't use mana, and they get broken. They let you play things when you shouldn't be able to play them.
Right.
So it's number two. Number two is let players interact. So he especially says there's been a lot of complaints. We've heard complaints from Josh. You've heard complaints from Brandon, I think, as well, about Standard being not fun right now.
Yeah, because it's just one of those things where as soon as you see a certain card come out, you're like, oh, I know what's going to happen. I might as well forfeit. Like, it's my deck is not for this. And that's what it's like. It's like, for me, it's why I don't like Standard, because it's like different than playing with someone who's a commander deck, right? Like, there's going to be variety. Typically. Right. So when you play in Standard and like the meta is very well known to everybody who is playing Standard, because you are playing Standard, you're probably very well versed in the meta right now. Right. You just know as soon as you see such and such card, it's done. Like either it's broken, like it's a broken combo or some broken ass thing, or it just your deck that you built doesn't work with work against it.
Right.
You already know.
So this is, I think, appealing to the same sense of like you're not able to do anything, but in a more literal way are the cards that Ryan is pointing out. It's like cards that actually just don't let you do things. So he's pointing at cards like Ensnaring Bridge or Blood Moon. Blood Moon is a 3-mana enchantment that says non-basic lands or mountains. It just doesn't let you do things.
Right.
And he points at 3-Fairy, so Teferi Time Raveler, who has the passive, each opponent can cast spells only anytime they could cast a sorcery. So, and also pointing out Narset, Parter of Veils, 3 mana Planeswalker again. Each opponent can't draw more than 1 card each turn. So you get all these cards that are just not letting people do things. They're making it so that one player just can't play the game.
Right.
And he's like, that's not necessarily inherently broken, but it does make it miserable to play, and you don't want that.
Right.
I do think it's funny, though, because we're recording this while M21 splitters are coming out, and let me tell you about this card. So this card is called Discontinuity.
Okay.
It costs 3 blue. It costs 3 blue, blue, blue. It's an instant. As long as it's your turn, this spell costs 2 blue, blue less to cast. So it just costs 2 mana. And it says end the turn. So for 6 mana on your opponent's turn, you can just end the turn before they even get to go.
That's bullshit.
Yes. So this is the kind of card that is breaking this rule that Ryan is setting forth. Which is like,
Right.
let players do things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Number 3 I want to get to because it brings up something that I think this speaks to more what you were discussing with like standard and running into the same thing. Rule number 3 is variance is vital. Let's see. He gives this weird example of like, suppose you read the Harry Potter series and enjoy it. You read another book and are surprised to find that it also stars Harry Potter as a protagonist. In fact, every book you can find has Harry Potter as a protagonist, which sounds like a nightmare. The stories themselves may be interesting. There may be innovations, twists, and surprises, but at some point you become rather sick of Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And basically he's just saying we don't want cards that are so good that they become ubiquitous, that everyone
Right.
has to have it. And I think this actually speaks to something I was discussing a while back. Things that piss you off in Magic, or cards that piss you off in Magic. I was talking about Arcane Signet, but I think it works for Astrums, Astrolabe, like all these things that you have to include. Like, we want variety. Now, number 4, I think, will be one of your favorite rules that Ryan came up with. It says the end game should not be the longest part of the game.
God.
You're like, preach, brother.
God, I don't want to play a game for 25 minutes.
Right.
Like, if all it is just 2 people sitting back and going, yes, I do X, Y, Z, and then this happens. And the other person's like, well, and I do A, B, D to make this happen. And it's like, Jesus, just go jerk each other off and be done with this.
Yeah, seriously. This is kind of, in my mind, this is like the Monopoly problem. I enjoy Monopoly as a game, but it has a serious game design problem, which is that
It's long as shit.
well, not just that it's long as shit, because I don't mind playing like Battlestar Galactica is a long game, but it's really enjoyable.
Right.
The problem is that the winner, you know who's going to win about halfway through the game, and then the second half of the game is just playing out what you know is going to happen.
Right.
They'll inevitably win, but you have to keep rolling these dice and landing on spaces and get bled out until the game's over.
Right.
Not the best designed game.
No, I was thinking about an example from it's one of those times where Amber's gonna try to put together a story from who knows what or where, and it's gonna be rambling, and there's a point someplace in it, but it's all about human psychology and how we as people can do things, like how long we're willing to go for stuff.
Oh yeah.
And so it was specifically, and I might have brought it up before, I'm not sure, but they were trying to see how long, it was for working. It's for like people in the workplace. If they're working, can you keep people to work if they know that in the end their work really meant nothing?
Right.
And it's like, so the example was like an Apple or something where basically people were working for a long period of time and then the project got canceled on them. And it's like, we spent 3 years working on this project and then it is pulled for not really like good legitimate reasons as far as the people are concerned anymore, because they spent 3 years of their life working on stuff, and then you pull it. So it's all about morale, specifically about morale. And I'm thinking about morale in games too. It's like when I play a game and I have to continue it even though I know what the outcome is going to be and it doesn't matter, I'm already losing, what's the point of continuing? And so specifically the psychologists had done this study where they had 2 groups. One group, they both were doing the same thing, they were building like Bionicles or a Lego set together, like a Lego set.
Okay.
And every time they completed a Lego set, they got paid. And for the group, one group was doing that. They would build the Lego set, they would get paid, and then they would take the Lego set away. And they kept doing that. That was the one group. And people would go for like, $20 or so. Seems reasonable.
Right.
Then they had another group where they would build the Lego set, they would get paid, but then the proctor would then disassemble the Lego set in front of them and then put it back into a box. And
Right.
that group only went for like 10
Right.
bucks or something, like half of it. Because it was just like, well, what's the point of me? Like, yeah, I'm getting paid, but like, I
It's
thought
so
this
funny.
was like
It's so
going
funny
to something
because
or
they
whatever.
both seem arbitrary, but yeah, obviously the people in the first group have an implicit narrative in their mind that this Lego set is going somewhere to be displayed or something.
Or yeah, like it could have not been a Lego set. It could have been something else. Like you're putting
Yeah.
together this kit for
Right.
whatever.
Or you're making a puzzle, and at the end of it they take it away, or
Right.
they break it up and put it back in the box.
Yeah, it's demoralizing. It's like I spent, even though I'm getting paid to do this for $1 or whatever, it's like, oh, that was my work. You just tore it to pieces.
Right.
So I think the same thing here. It's like the end game should not be the longest part of the game. I think it speaks to morale, right? Like I don't want to continue a game that I know that I'm losing or will lose.
Can I add my own little anecdote on top of that?
Sure.
So as a
Why not?
teacher, I have students do work in class, and sometimes I collect it and sometimes I don't. I never grade it. I think grading in-class work is like not worth the effort. I just want
Right.
them to be doing the work and be thinking about it. And one thing that I did for a long time is I wouldn't collect it, but if somebody said, "Are you collecting this?" I would say yes, and then I would collect it. And it's so funny, the difference, because it doesn't show up in my gradebook anywhere. But when I collect the work, they work so much harder than if it's not being collected. I think it's kind of the
Yep.
same thing.
Yep.
Anyway, so that gets us back into Magic, where the problem that Ryan has with a lot of these ways that the game ends is that the game is over. One person is like firmly in control, but you still have to keep playing to close it out. He's like, the big splashy plays at the end of the game should end the game, and they should end it in short order. Okay, so those are his 4 recommendations.
Wow. Here's another list.
He does, yeah. So his recommendations, first he says ban some cards. He says ban companions. The rules change them, so we'll see. I'm curious if they'll still have to take any more actions on companions, but, we'll see.
Yeah.
He says ban Teferi, Time Raveler, Wilderness Reclamation, and Fires. They've banned Fires. Then ban Teferi and maybe Narset in all formats. More importantly, he's just saying ban these mistakes. His more important ones, some of these are rehashes. He says, don't print cards that cheat on mana. We discussed that one. Be extremely careful about printing cards that say players or opponents can't do something. So we talked about that one. Another one, this is one that was not on his previous list. Include powerful catch-all answers to problematic permanents, especially planeswalkers and colorless cards. It seems like, looking at M21, it seems like they are doing that. There's a lot of planeswalker hate in the next set, which is, yeah, I agree. I sent you immediately, speaking of, as soon as I saw it,
whatever cat or something.
I think it's a Masticore.
Whatever,
Yeah,
it's
the
a cat.
Spark Hunter Masticore.
Yeah.
3 mana artifact creature Masticore, 3/4. You have to discard a card when you play it. It has protection from planeswalkers, and you can pay 1 to have it deal 1 damage to a planeswalker, and you pay 3 to make it indestructible until end of turn. That's pretty cool. Okay. He says in-game threats should end the game if they're unanswered, rather than have you do the same thing over and over again. He says, do not print cards or classes of cards other than basic lands that players must include in their decks lest they operate at a substantial disadvantage. So this is pushing for variance again. Next, internal timelines need to be reworked to allow developers time to test cards after they've been iterated on, or put new eyes on the cards after multiple iterations. That's a good idea.
Yes, that's what I've been preaching for years.
Too many mistakes come from cards being missed because the prior versions were weak. Very true. That's a story we've heard a lot.
Do you know what? Sorry,
Yeah,
I was
go
like,
ahead.
do you know what copy edit fatigue is? It's
Yeah.
like what you're like. Yeah, you would know. Where it's just like I've stared at this stuff for 3 weeks. I need
Right.
to take a break so I can come back refreshed and not wanting to like jam pencils into my ears.
Or not just like hand wave and be like, yes, it's good.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Sorry.
F. No 2-mana planeswalkers in standard, and 3-mana ones better be really well tested. If there's any uncertainty, don't print it. I agree with that. I agree with that a lot. And then last, if you choose to raise the power level while also ignoring A through F, then at a minimum, do not put that power into places that undercut the key axioms of the game. So yeah, I think this is a very good article, and it's very funny too. Like, a lot of these lessons are like things that we, the community, learned when people at Wizards wrote articles saying, this is why this card was broken. Like, when
Right.
Stoneforge, I remember when Stoneforge got banned, part of the article was saying, we need to learn the lesson that combining searching with cheating it into play is a dangerous combination. It's like Tinker, which lets you sacrifice an artifact to get any artifact from your library and put it into play for free. They're like, that's dangerous. And yet,
That's very dangerous.
we still have, like, Aetherworks Marvel did exactly the same thing a few years later. Like, they need to learn these lessons. So well said, Ryan.
Yeah. Good article.
Do you have any closing thoughts?
God, just treat your R&D team well and give them the time they need. Like, that's my biggest thing, is, like, it starts with a human. You got a bunch of humans working together. I swear to God, we will do our best work. I feel like I'm preaching to my
Yeah, exactly.
company right now. It's like, we will do our best work. Like, I'm sure that the people who play or who work in Magic, like, love and enjoy Magic. Like, I love and enjoy what I work on. So it's like, come on, give us the time. We can make something really great, but you can't just rush shit out the door. Like,
Right.
you can't do that. This is what happens.
Yep.
Ugh.
Get you good and
God.
riled up here.
Well, that's not that hard to do.
Very true. Being a red
Anyway.
mage.
Did you see that cool, like, stuffy... Oh, here comes Edie.
Hi,
She
Edie.
must have been crying all the time. I was going to say, did you see that stuffy doll goblin?
What?
The stuffy doll goblin?
No.
The new an M20 goblin that came out? Spoilers?
No. A stuffy doll goblin.
It's pretty interesting.
What's it called?
It is called Conspicuous... No, that's not right.
No.
That's the other one.
I saw that one.
Yeah. What was it? I just saw it. M21.
Brash Taunter?
That's it.
Yeah, Brash Taunter. 4 and a red. 1/1 goblin indestructible. Whenever it is dealt damage, it deals how much damage to target opponent. It fights another target creature. Oh, wow.
Uh-huh.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's way cool. I love Stuffy Doll.
Yeah. But there it is as a... Like you hit like a kobold. What a great card. I love it.
That's great. Carvec? Carvec's back? My God.
Okay, we gotta stop talking. We're going off. We're going off. Well, that was my show and tell. There you go. That was what I brought to the table today. Brash Taunter.
That was great. I really enjoyed Brash Taunter.
Okay, cool. I really enjoyed your article. So that means we can stop and take a nap now, right? Like, I need to go take a nice long nap.
Yep, it does. That is what it means. We have to say goodbye first, though.
Ah, you do it all. All right, I'm gonna lay back. Take it away, Getty.
We're Red Mage, Blue Mage. I'm Kenny, and I play Blue... Oh, that's the end, or the beginning of the show, rather. I'm Kenny. You can find me at Wolfmere. That's Amber. You can find her at Rocket Orca. You can find us collectively at Red Blue MTG. We usually stream our recordings on Tuesdays at 7 Eastern. Twitch.tv/Geekspective. You're looking at me like, no, we don't?
No, we do.
You, like, sat up very, like, worriedly there for a second.
I got days confused.
Okay. Until next time, I'll be representing Counterspell.
and you hit like a kobold.
Bye-bye.
Bye.